Bergman Island, in theaters again October 15th, and everywhere you rent movies October 22nd. Very simple story. There are two filmmakers. They are, I believe, well, they're together, or one would assume married. They have a child. They're two filmmakers, and they're played by Tim Roth and Vicky Krieps.
So you know this island? It's kind of special, right?
Yeah, it's the island of the director you and Mommy like a lot.
Yep, that's it. A lot of people come here to work.
Vem kan se
Students, writers, designers. Wow.
All this calm and perfection. I find it oppressive.
Soothing.
You know how hard writing is for me? It's torture, it's self-inflicted agony, it's blood from a stone.
Well, then, do something else.
Yeah, like what? Full-time housewife?
Well, it's an honourable profession.
Do you think you can't create a great body of work and raise a family at the same time?
At the age of 42, Bergman had directed 25 films. How do you think he would have done that if he was also changing diapers?
How's your thing going?
Pretty good, actually.
What's it about?
It's about how invisible things circulate within a couple.
Can I tell you about what I'm writing?
Yeah.
A young woman looks into the distance. She's about my age, or maybe a bit younger. They loved each other passionately and awkwardly, like teenagers do.
I never mentioned it to my girlfriend, but she's jealous of you.
Why her and not me? You spaced out.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did.
No, I didn't.
The attraction was still overwhelming. But there was no place in their lives for this love story anymore.
We all know who Tim Roth is, and I'm sure listeners, you know who Vicky Krieps is because she was the lead, I would say the main lead in the PTA film, the aforementioned PTA film, Phantom Thread. But she's great in that movie, in that PTA movie. They're filmmakers. They go out into this island called Faro, and Faro for years was the home of filmmaker Ingmar Bergman, and he shot a bunch of his movies on the island of Faro. And Bergman Island, I was going to say, is a movie that is catnip for cinephiles who love Ingmar Bergman. But half the reason why I can't say that because I looked at a YouTube video and another Asian person who was around my age said this movie is catnip for cinephiles as well. So obviously my description is not very original, but it literally is catnip. If you are a movie fan, if you know a little bit about Ingmar Bergman, that helps as well. If you are a huge fan of Ingmar Bergman, this really, really helps. Also, the movie is not just a look at the life of Bergman. No, it looks at the intricacies of how filmmakers express their art in a secluded retreat, with this retreat being Faro. It's a beautiful looking movie. It's meditative. It is a very acquired taste. I really fell in love with this movie. And the filmmaker, I've got to look up her name, but her previous film was Things to Come.
Mia Hansen-Løve or Lowe?
Yes, very good. Mia Hansen-Løve. And thank you, Bruce. Her previous film was Things to Come, which, like, this is a little bit of a slow burn movie and it knocks you out with a really great ending. I was really just enamored with Bergman Island. Would love to hear what you, Bruce, think of Bergman Island. Again, it is a very acquired taste kind of movie.
I agree. And I think that's a big warning you got to put out to people, because this is one of those movies where you have to like the vibe of it. Like, this is not a movie where the plot is going to drive you forward. It's almost more of a movie where you're just going to be with a character or a couple characters and just kind of almost be on the vacation with them. Although it's about more than that. It has that feel. Like, you really, really get a feel and a sense of the place. Like, just the natural sounds and riding around on a bike and going from place to place or in a car from place to place. And if you get into that vibe, which I surprisingly did. At first I was like, I don't know if this is going to just bore the heck out of me. It's about 2 hours long. I fell into it and I was just like, I could just live on this island with whoever they want to throw in my face for a while. It didn't hurt that it was Vicky Krieps.
I think on the podcast they call it Creeps.
And
So I was going to say
we haven't mentioned Mia Wasikowska also. So
Yes.
that definitely, being on vacation with those two women for a couple hours wasn't the worst thing in the world, I would say. So, but on top of that, and we haven't talked about, are we going to not mention there's an artifice in
Yeah,
this
no, but
movie?
we can. I think for the purposes of the review, I think we can mention the artifice because it's not a big spoiler. It's part of the fabric of what you're going to see because they call it a meta film. We might as well call out the meta part of it a little bit.
Yeah. So the whole idea is that you have this couple there, and at some point, Vicky Krieps character, I cannot say her name right. She wants to she's trying to workshop her script she's been working on with the Tim Roth character, and she starts telling the story, and then it becomes that story for a good chunk of the film. I mean, what would you say, about 45 minutes maybe?
Yeah, 35 to 40 minutes at least. It becomes another film.
That's a really hard thing to pull off because you're basically saying like, oh, you've been with these characters the whole time, you're getting, invested, and all of a sudden now you're going to just be drawn out and pull in these other people. It totally worked for me. And I became invested in that story. But then the whole time I was starting to go, okay, what is she telling about her real life? Like, what is she trying? Like, what are we getting about the real character from these other characters? And it started to do kind of an interesting mind trick on me in just trying to interpret this. Lastly, I'd just say that there's a very wistful, it almost has that some of those movies that have that end of summer, the missed opportunities, there's a lot of that going on here, sort of a slightly melancholy, but not really totally. I think it's really, really good. It's hard to sell. Once again, like we said, if you're into the mood of it after about a half hour or so, I think you will probably really kind of love this movie.
Yes, I agree. In fairness, though, when that meta starts happening and we see the secondary story with Mia Wasikowska playing a fictional character from the mind of Vicky Krieps, as well as it deals with that Mia Wasikowska's character's love for a childhood friend played by Ander Danielson, I think, Lai. And a lot of people will jump off of this movie. They're going to say, I just followed this. Why am I being forced or inflicted another 30 to 35 minutes of another story that I have to invest my time in? That said, it makes, in my opinion, the third act, without giving too much away, there's a really cool moment that I think might be worth those 35 to 40 minutes, hopefully, or you might be even more pissed off. I don't know. Either way, did you like the end, the little thing at the end?
I did. And the last thing, and we're just making Eric just sitting there silently, but the last thing I'd say is another testament to a movie like this. If it works on you, you are going to start looking up the island, and you're going to start looking at all the places, and you're going to start discovering that, yes, these are all real places, and you're probably going to want to go there. So
yes, Eric Holmes, acquired taste. I was really worried about you because you, out of all the three of us, first of all, you are a writer at heart. You go to writers, you've workshop your screenplay, so you know the process. You are more of a reader than me and Bruce. Okay, you're actually quite astute when it comes to your reading. I would like to see what your take on this movie is.
Well, I was just thinking that before I put this movie on, I was thinking to myself, I want to spend some time with some just unbearable hipsters and talking about Ingmar Bergman. And lo and behold, this movie shows up. There were some bits of this I kind of appreciated, but overall, this just wasn't quite my speed. Not quite my tempo. I'm not a huge Bergman fan. In fact, I think the only movie of his I saw was probably Seventh Seal. There might have been one or two other ones, but
in the movie they screened Cries and Whispers. By the way, the couple they're actually at a screening room, and they're arguing over which Bergman film to actually screen in the beautiful print, and they end up. Well, that is a spoiler. Watching Cries and Whispers. So
the scenes like that when they're talking about like Ingmar Bergman, they seem so pained when they're doing it. It's like I don't see any joy coming out of any people in that movie, which is like, you hear us talk about movies. If I can plug our own podcast that you're listening to right now for a second.
Yeah. Are you saying we're a bunch of joy buckets? We're a bunch of joy buckets, Eric?
Yeah. Well, yeah. When we talk about something we like, we're like, yeah, like, right. Even you, like, I didn't love Bergman Island, but you did, and I can tell you're like, ooh, I can't wait to talk about this. But the characters in the movie, they're talking about Bergman, they're like, they got that kind of stuffy sort of. It's like, oh god, these fucking people. This was like the Jacinta. It's like, I know the people. I know the people. I've hung out with the people, and I don't want to watch a movie about the people.
Eric, was this a slog for you? To be honest, was it a bit of a slog?
Yeah, a little bit. But that being said, like in what you and Bruce mentioned, I think this is get 30 minutes in. If you're on this movie's wavelength, then this is going to be the movie for you. And I also think, and I don't want to shit on the movie too much, because I think this might be one of those movies I think this is another case of one of those movies that I just picked up at the wrong time. Because I remember the first time I saw Magnolia, I fucking hated that movie. I was like, what the fuck is this pretentious bullshit? Fuck this movie.
Right.
And then I went back and watched it again and go, no, actually Magnolia is pretty fucking sweet. I don't know what crawled up my ass the first time I saw that. So
no, I mean, sell this slightly?
Yeah.
I'll sell this a little bit.
Okay.
Go ahead, Eric or Greg.
That was pretty much it. I would say, like Bruce and Greg suggested, check out the first 30 minutes, and if you're feeling it, then keep going. If you're not feeling it, maybe put it away and try again later.
Well, I was going to say, in fairness to your opinion, Eric, I think it's as far as maybe you might want to rewatch it down the road and see if you have an opinion. I honestly think, in many ways, this film, even though it seems light, it's a very dense movie. So I don't know. So I think there's going to be a lot of people in your camp, Eric, regarding this. So I'm glad that you had this opinion on Bergman Island, actually.
Run this by Anderson. I really want to see what Anderson thinks of this.
I'm gonna actually give him for Christmas. I'm gonna give him a digital copy of Bergman Island and maybe a box set of Ingmar Bergman.
You're probably gonna hate this, but go ahead and take this one for the team. we want to know.
Yeah, Bruce, that's a good idea, Eric.
Well, I would agree. This is one of those movies for sure. If it looks like one of those kind of movies that you don't really like, you probably will come true to you in some way, because it is kind of one of those type of movies. Although I will defend it slightly, because I think that the pretentious Bergman files, which I'm not really much of one, I think this movie is kind of poking a pretty big finger at that type of movie, and even Bergman himself, because I think the whole point is your main character, Chris, it is Chris, yes, she is kind of not happy with his whole extra dark and dour and extra symbolic version of movies in the world. And I think this movie is kind of her version of what she thinks movies should be, which is there is a level of unpretentiousness to what she's actually doing. And I'll give an example. She goes on that day trip with that dude, right? And that could have been this big dramatic thing, and he could have had all these like alternate intentions on her, and it could have been all this stuff could have gone down with that. But instead, no, they just went and had a good time and did some stuff, and that was it. And I think that's kind of the point of this movie. And it may be boring still to people, but I don't think I think it's actually making fun somewhat of the people that are like super pretentious and stuff. Like, you see it when she's on the trip with them too, or he's on the trip. They are kind of seen as almost mockable. So
I'm going to try to actually balance this without being too spoilery, but the idea when you have two artists, they are going on a retreat, this retreat being Faro, which is AKA Bergman Island, it really explores how they take their time and express their art in different ways. So it's not just a look at a couple that might not be in the peak of their romance. They're probably in the doldrums of it, but you actually explore how the person who's the filmmaker, the more revered filmmaker, the Tim Roth character, he's there to speak on his own films and Bergman, and he's there to do all the tourist things. While Chris, who's also a filmmaker, played by Vicky Krieps, she actually takes another route regarding her own passions for cinema and Bergman and storytelling. And I'm not going to give too much away on where that road leads to, but there's something to be said about when you're crafting a story, the importance of actually finding passion or knowledge of the place you're writing about, as opposed to just taking it as a surface story, surface element in your 3-act play or 3-act screenplay or whatever. But so I think Bergman Island is a very deep film in many ways, but it also can be taken as a very light confection. So either way, there's a lot. Eric, you were gonna.
I think I would like this movie if it was called Darren Island, and it was a bunch of hipsters going to see Maya Darren's grave, and then all of a sudden, like this demon with mirror eyes just started chasing them around the
and cats, lots of cats.
Yes. Well, Gremlins would be great in Meshes of the Afternoon as well. That's also great. That's a wonderful short. Very good, Eric Holmes. So that is Bergman Island in theaters again, October 15th, everywhere you rent movies, October 22nd. Strong recommend from me and Bruce. And then Eric, not a recommend, but he said it's just not your type of film. Fair enough.
Yeah. This would be watch the trailer, or check out the first little bit, see if it tickles your fancy, and if not, bail and maybe check it out later.
All right, Eric. You know what? You gave a nice recommend to The Old Ways, and you gave not so much of a Bergman Island recommend to Bergman Island. Let me ask you a question. Would you rather be drinking goat milk in Veracruz in the middle of the jungle, or would you rather just be hanging out with Vicky Krieps and Tim Roth skipping stones along the beach in Bergman Island?
Who's Veracruz?
Oh, that's the setting of The Old Ways.
Oh.
Yeah.
That makes a little more sense.
Veracruz is also a Bertland, a really awesome Western. But anyways, yeah. So which would goat milk or the beach? That's what I'm gonna say. I'm just
drinking goat milk in Veracruz sounds fun. And yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, let's see that.
That's fair enough. Holding to your guns, very good.